Hello, this is Laura and welcome to the Learning Reading Hub. If you're here today, I'm sure you already know how important it is to teach phonics principles when it comes to reading. But where to start exactly, right? What is the right order for teaching phonics? Is there even such a thing as the right order? Don't worry, that's exactly what we're going to learn in this video. After watching this video, you will not only know how to check if a literacy curriculum has a good scope and sequence for the introduction of phonics, if that's what you're after, but you will also learn the principles to apply if you want to create your own scope and sequence. I'll even share with you a done-for-you sequence that you're more than welcome to use. Okay, there's a lot to cover today, but it's crucial. In fact, it may well be one of the main pillars of a successful learn to read strategy. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, first of all, and I'm sorry if this is a little bit disappointing, there's actually not such a thing as the right order. There's nothing set in stone. No one has found just the magic order that is simply perfect and infallible for teaching reading. The good news, I guess, on the other hand, is that you can achieve a great deal of success following different scopes and sequences. There are many different valid alternatives. However, there are 5 factors that, in my opinion, you should take into consideration when you're picking a scope and sequence to follow. These are, by the way, the factors I'd personally take into account. This is based on my personal experience, of course, but also on extensive reading and research on the topic. After going through these factors, I'll also give you an example of a done-for-you scope and sequence, tell you where to find it, where to download it for free, so stay tuned for that. But I think it is a good idea that we go through these factors together first, so you understand why I think they are so important. Okay, let's go. Factor number 1, the first thing that I take into consideration is making sure that it places a lot of importance on the development of phonemic and phonological awareness right from the beginning. Before a kid learns to read, he or she must learn to hear. Phonemic and phonological awareness are all about getting familiar with the sounds in words. When we say phonological awareness, by the way, we normally refer to the ability to recognize rhymes, onset rhymes, and syllables in words. On the other hand, when we say phonemic awareness, we refer to the ability to hear and play with the individual sounds in words. These individual sounds are called phonemes, hence the name phonemic awareness. But we should not confuse the number of phonemes in a word with the number of letters. For instance, the word cat has 3 letters and 3 phonemes. K, a, t. Easy, right? But another word such as chip, for instance, it has 4 letters but only 3 phonemes. Ch, e, p. It's a little bit tricky, right? Especially for children. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of training. But don't worry too much for the time being. This is a skill that you keep refining and getting better at as you progress with your reading ability, if you're using the right approach for learning to read, obviously. But getting started with the basics right from the beginning, starting to train our ears to hear the sounds in words, understanding that words are made up of sounds, that they actually blend together to form words, that we can play with those sounds, etc., makes a lot of sense. In fact, phonemic awareness has repeatedly been found to be the number 1 predictor for future successful reading and of reading failure. So long story short, look for a sequence that starts with these 2 skills, phonemic and phonological awareness. The second factor that I take into consideration is making sure that it starts really simple with the most basic phonics concepts first and gradually progresses towards more difficult concepts, but always building upon what your child or a student already knows. So as we introduce new concepts, they must build on top of each other, creating this sort of compounding effect, if you wish. We don't want to go from super simple to super advanced, and I know this sounds way too obvious, very logical, but some scopes and sequences do not take this into account. They overcomplicate things way too quickly, or they leave concepts in the air. assuming that children will just figure things out. And in my opinion, this is risky. We do not want that sort of thing in our scope and sequence. Factor number 3 is making sure it does not pose a cognitive overload for your child or student. This idea goes a lot in line with the previous factor, so in the same way, we don't want to move too quickly, overcomplicate things too quickly, leave concepts unexplained. We don't want to introduce too many things at the same time. This can easily overload our students' working memory. Too much to process at the same time is never a good idea. Factor number 4 is focusing on the most common sounds letters make first, so we can start reading words as soon as possible. So instead of following the order of the alphabet, we focus on the most common sounds in the first 200 words or so in most elementary word lists. Again, I repeat, the idea is to get our children reading real words as soon as possible. Factor number 5 is making sure it does not cause confusion. To avoid this confusion, we could separate easily confused letters and sounds. So introducing the letters T and D at the same time is probably not a great idea because they sound very similar. D. In fact, the only difference between these two sounds is that one is unvoiced and the other one is voiced. Introducing the letters B and D at the same time is probably not the best idea either because many children mix them up. Okay, so these are our 5 factors. Different scopes and sequences may take other factors into consideration, but let me share with you an example of what I think is a logic, a well-thought order. Remember, this is just a suggestion. You can use an alternative one if you want to. There's nothing set in stone here, as we said before. This scope and sequence, by the way, will be available at learningreadinghub.com/free-resources. Don't worry, I will leave you the link on the video description as well, so relax, no need to take notes, you have it there for free if you want to. Okay, so this is our phonics sequence. As you can see, step number 1 is to develop phonological and phonemic awareness, as we've discussed before. Step number 2 is letter recognition, letter sounds, letter naming. And these are skills that we normally develop or start to develop in preschool and kindergarten. Then we move on to start teaching consonant and vowel sounds, short vowel sounds. This is a suggested order for consonants, but you also need to start teaching some short vowels after a few consonants, so children can start reading simple CVC words. This is especially important with school-age students, as we want them reading as soon as possible, and they are not going to be able to do that unless they know some vowels. By the way, regarding the vowels, a very common approach is to actually interchange the order of E and I. So you teach A, I, E, O, U. You could do that, or you could just teach them A, E, I, O, U. This is not so important in my opinion, but remember, coming back to what we were saying before about introducing a few vowels in between the consonants, you could maybe introduce st and then a, p, and then e or I, depends on what you want to do, etc. Okay, so after decoding simple CVC words, we want to move on. I'm practicing a lot, by the way. We want to move on to gaining mastery at reading CCVC and CVCC words and even CCVCC words. Okay, I'll give you a few examples. Words like crab, flip, flop, skip, jump. These are all words that have this sort of a structure. You may have heard of these words as words containing consonant blends. So for instance, in the words I've just mentioned, crab, C and R form what is called a blend. And in the word flip, the consonants F and L form what is called a blend, okay? So many programs at this point say introduce these blends and then introduce these other blends and then move on to these other blends until you cover what I believe are 34 blends in total. Could be even more than 34, I don't know, it's a lot. And that is the main reason why I prefer not to teach blends explicitly. In my humble opinion, and I know not everyone agrees with me on this one, it can easily end up in cognitive overload for our kids, especially when we take into account all the digraphs, all the vowel themes, all the patterns, everything that we have to teach on top of that later on, okay? And the thing is that it's not really necessary actually, because the sounds of the consonants on these blends do not really change. They are said very quickly, but do not change. So, in my opinion, a more sensible approach and a better use of our time, again, in my opinion, is to spend more time refining and mastering our sounding out skills, our blending skills with words of increasing difficulty. Anyway, it's up to you if you still want to or need to teach these blends. Now it's a good moment to start introducing some basic blends. And if you don't even know what I'm talking about, by the way, or would like to know more about this topic, there's another video on the channel where I talk all about blends. I'll leave you a card over here and a link on the video description so you can watch it later. Okay, moving on, it's time for basic consonant digraphs such as ch, sh, v, f, k, n, etc. You could interchange this step with the previous one if you wanted to as well, but in my opinion, it's better to get children reading at least CCVC words before teaching consonant digraphs. Why? Well, because this is going to make them masters at blending, which is what we want, that skill becomes second nature, okay? And also because we need to introduce the tricky concept of two letters teaming up to make one sound, and that actually requires rethinking about what we've learned so far, maybe applying specific strategies to actually tackle these and understand these. So another thing is to make sure that you go little by little, always move on gradually and introduce review. And if you're wondering when is this normally taught, when is this normally mastered, well, in kindergarten to first grade, okay? However, please take the grade levels as suggestions only. I don't know the specific needs your student has. I don't know if you need to stick to a specific syllabus either. Okay, next. Magicy, bossy, magically, so many names. If you've heard of other names, please tell me in the comments. Basically, as you may already know, what happens in these words is that the finally is dropped and the preceding vowel say its name instead of its short sound. So we read these: make, Pete, time, hope, mute. Okay, let's carry on. And by the way, if you notice a different look, I'm wearing different clothes, well, you're not crazy. Something came up while recording. Well, actually what happened is that my computer ran out of memory while recording, so I had to stop it. I had to delete a ton of files and it just got too late. So today is a brand new day and fingers crossed it won't happen again. Let's try to go fast. Remember that in any case you've got a link to this document on the video description. So let's continue. Then we have all of these things that are normally taught in first grade. The floss rule, learning the spelling rules because we've already learned how to read words with double consonants. Some long vowel patterns such as words ending in ILD, mild and child, IND, mind or find, OLD, old or cold, OLT, bold or cold, and OST, most or host. Words ending in all is next, such as all, small, tall. Then we have more digraphs with silent letters in them, such as the GH digraph, WR digraph, and the MB digraph. We move on to simple one open syllable words such as he, me, or so. Sorry, from now on I think I'm just gonna name the concepts. I cannot really stand of each one of them because oh my god, I could be talking for hours and hours, and remember, I don't even know if I have enough memory on my computer, and you probably don't want me talking for hours and hours anyway. But if you want to know more, dig on something specifically, I recommend you browse the Learning Reading Hub YouTube channel. In our videos, we have covered many of the concepts listed here. I also highly recommend that you use this scope and sequence in conjunction with our guide, How to Teach a Child to Read from Scratch, step by step. At the time of recording, we're still giving it away in PDF format as an ebook. Link on the bio for that. And if you want to have it on Kindle format, no problem at all. It's also available for Kindle users on Amazon as well. However, it's not 100% free on Amazon, but it's really affordable in the region of $1, $2, $5 maximum. Sorry, I don't want to give you a specific price because I don't know when you're going to be watching this video. Anyway, moving on. 2-syllable words with 2 closed syllables, such as the words picnic or laptop, is next. We move on to 2-syllable words with an open syllable first and a closed syllable second, or with a closed syllable first and an open syllable second. In other words, at this point, we are learning how to read more challenging multi-syllable words. We're also learning how to divide syllables and how this has an effect on how we read the vowels in these syllables. Next is the rules for soft G and hard G. The rules for soft G and hard G. We move on to more digraphs with silent letters in them, more specifically the TCH digraph and the DGE digraph. Basic R control syllables, R, or, and we move on to vowel themes. Long vowel sound on Y ending words, cry, buy. Other vowel themes, other digraphs with silent letters, KN as in no, GN as in gnome. More vowel themes. Maybe the concepts that we're going to see from here are more for 2nd grade or even 3rd grade, but again, adjust these to your child's or student's needs. Okay, so what is next? The OE vowel theme, words ending in CK. It could be a good time to introduce and explain this spelling rule, even though I say here optional, because I know this sequence could be used by many people that only want to focus on reading at this particular time. Then we have the W effect on the letter A. We have it in words such as want or wasp or even want. The ED suffix, as you may already know, we have 3 different sounds for this suffix, and this is one of those very reliable rules that we want to teach our kids. Then we move on to all ending words, as in marble or table. Advanced digraphs, the GH digraph and the PH digraph for the F sound. More complex R controlled syllables, more advanced digraphs, TION ending words, motion, emotion, TURE ending words, nature, future, CIAL ending words, crucial, social. Less common vowel themes, learning that the letter S can make the S sound in some words, as in as, is, use, the ing suffix, and you could explain the rules for when to double the consonant when we are adding this suffix. TIEV ending words, active, native, positive, negative, and this is where it finishes. This sequence takes you more or less to 2nd grade level. Again, take the grade levels with a pinch of salt. They are suggestions only. After this, you want to focus on more prefixes and suffixes, compound words, and of course, improving spelling and writing. Remember as well, you can download this scope and sequence for free. All the details are on the video description. You can also download the guide, How to Teach a Child to Read from Scratch, step by step. Finally, as I said before, all scopes and sequences are slightly different. At the end of the day, they all have their own logic, and that's what really matters, that there's a logic behind them, that you do not leave gaps, concepts unexplained, that you do not jump from simple to complicated, and that you introduce things very gradually. I hope you enjoyed this video, and remember to browse our channel and subscribe for more content like this one. Thank you for watching.